it's not going to work, and a lot of other things that are going to dissuade you from starting your startup. So I think Finland is a really good place to start your startup. I mean, there's a big ecosystem here that, you can't find in many places.
And in your opinion, what is the main problem that startups face? What stops them from becoming big and successful?
So the main problem that startups have, just choosing one is quite difficult, but
you can choose several.
I'll just go with this one. They start with ideas that are in the founder's head. I think that's problematic because the idea doesn't always match with the market. And when that ends up happening, often the founder or the founding team doesn't do enough research to actually realize that before the product's built, before they've put all this time and effort into the startup.
And what is the main key for success for a young business?
So the main key for a young business would be, of course, trying to find what it is actually that has the two things, that people are actually interested in being served in that market, so they're interested in buying or using that service, and then what the business actually stands for and what it was founded for, so that then you can have that crossover between those two. For a person, it would be like what you want to do and then what you could get paid for. In a startup, it's similar, what kind of values the company has, what they want to achieve, and then what people are looking for, and then crossing those two.
Okay, thank you for this opinion. Say I start a small business. Do I need to hire someone in the marketing? Shall I do the reading myself? Can I have someone doing it part-time? Or if I'm early stage startup, can I just concentrate on producing the product and do with the marketing later?
So I think every founder has to take charge of the marketing to some level. If you're starting a sales organization, you have to, or something where you have to sell, you have, as a founder and as a CEO, you have to take care of the sales. And I think marketing is no different. You have to at least understand a lot of it. Like, one of my strengths is understanding the basics of programming, and that makes me really good to work with programmers. So if you understand the basics of marketing and you can do some of that legwork in the beginning, it doesn't need to be very complicated marketing in the beginning for the founder. But if you can do some of that basic marketing, and also testing out the product hypothesis, then it's going to be much easier when you bring another person in. And I think there's no set time on when to bring that other person in, but I would say the earlier the better, because usually when companies ask me to join, they're like, we have this product, now we need to market it. And then the first thing is to figure out if people actually want the product.
So now our listeners have to think if their product is well marketed, and if not, start doing something about it straight away. And I can only thank you, Alexei, for the interview today. Thank you for being with us and for joining Red Brick Accelerator.
Thank you very much.
Hello, Tatiana. Can I ask you first to tell a few things about yourself, your background?
First of all, hello. It was really nice to be here. My background is a UX UI designer, and I have started my career back in 97. And I was starting as a graphic designer, and when I moved to Finland, I switched from graphic design to user interface design and UX. And there was at some point that I had my own company, iToiminimi, and I was making a game for iOS devices like iPhone and iPad, and eventually I turned up to be part of some startups as an independent UI designer. And now currently I'm working at a company, the Neuro Event Labs, and I am the lead UX UI designer.
During your presentation, which I partially watched today, you talked about the importance of context. Could you please comment on that?
What we discussed actually today, it was about design thinking. It is a process that helps not only designers, but I think everyone who would like to find a solution to a specific problem follow a couple of specific steps, which they don't have to be necessarily in a linear mode, but nevertheless they can be partially done, and then you could always go back and fix them. So basically the design thinking, it is a method, it is a methodology that it is based on solutions. It has like a solution-based approach, not a problem-solve approach. It is quite common, and quite many companies, big companies, they use it. So we talked about the importance of design thinking and how it could be implemented in the startups.
I heard that you also talked about feelings. Usually when I think of business, starting a business, I have this idea that business person should be like cold-headed, you know.
Yep.
But do you still need feelings when you're doing your business?
Yeah, I think the whole idea behind it, when I talk about feelings, it is mostly because we tend to forget, especially like you said, when it comes to business, we tend to forget that we try to sell something to a person. And we tend to see that person as like a strange entity, that we say, okay, it is a user. And usually when we use the word user, we don't think that we are talking about a person who has feelings, a person who make irrational decisions, or who can make clear decisions or wrong decisions, or people who are buying things because they just want to buy them without actually thinking about why I bought this. So my single approach, I would say, because when it comes to UX, to user experience, we really need to pay attention to people. And we tend to forget that mostly because we don't have enough money or enough time. And we try always, when it comes to business, to do it so that we spend as, let's say, find the simplest solution or the cheapest solution, and we don't actually think about the person who is going to use that. And that it is a little bit, in my mind, I think this is a little bit, let's say, not the best approach that someone could have. Because if you do not know for whom you are designing, and you cannot fully understand them, and you cannot fully empathize with them, then how will you ever be able to create a product that they would like to buy?
Okay, in your opinion, is marketing more about I get an idea and I will influence the client in the market and they will buy it? Or is it more like I will research the market and find what people want and then sell it to them?
That depends what you want to do. I mean,
get the sales.
If you want to get the sales, then you have to understand what the people need.
Right.
So first you have to actually understand first you have to understand or find out or define what it is the problem you try to solve. So if you do not have a clear solution, or if you haven't defined a clear problem about anything, then how you can understand if someone actually needs this?
How do you find the balance? How do you, as a, not you, but like a young startup or young entrepreneur, finds the balance between I have my own way of doing things, I know what I want to do, and okay, there are wise guys, experienced coaches or someone telling me how should I do it. How do you balance those two? Where is the truth?
I think the truth lies somewhere in between, and it is a very tricky question because I don't believe there is one correct answer. If you are a startup and you don't know or you do not have the experience, you tend to rely on people who have the experience and you follow them or you follow their advice. And I think this is quite normal. And once you start having your own experience, you can make some decisions by yourself. And this is where you actually grow as a person and entrepreneur as well, to be able to find the balance. But I think at the beginning, it is not so easy to do. I mean, for any profession, not only for a startup, but if you're doing any profession whatsoever.
What's the most common reason that stops startups from becoming big and successful?
I think they quit sooner than they're supposed to. They get frustrated, and that's also understandable, because if you do not have the resources, if you do not have the time, very often you can start second guess your own self and say, does it really worth it what I'm trying to do? I truly believe that if you keep going and going and going, eventually you will be successful. Success doesn't come with 1 or 2 tries. You just have to push when everyone stops.
Okay, thank you for your answers. And basically, I have one last question.
Sure.
Do you think it's a good time nowadays in Finland to start a business of your own? Or are we in some kind of crisis and it's better to wait?
I think since, I don't know how many years ago we had this Nokia It can be like
in
6
this
years.
century,
In this
somewhere
century at some point, yeah. I think we started to have like small businesses here in Finland. And it was... the way I said it was a good thing because it could help people to create what actually they wanted to create, but not all of them, they could become successful. If someone really believes and they want to do something, like I said, you need to have perseverance and you have to overcome all the odds, which are not easy. In that case, I would say follow your heart. If you really want to do it and if you really want to start up your own business, do it. Worst case scenario, it will be maybe your business is not going to be successful, but you will be successful in gaining experience and knowledge that otherwise you wouldn't have gotten. That's all.
Okay, I think I understood you right. Thank you very much, Tatiana, for your interview and for being a part of Red Brick Accelerator this week.
Thank you very much for inviting me. Actually, it was really nice to be part of that. Thank you.
Does one have to be born to code? My next guest will try to ruin this myth. Hello?
I'm Ville Ilkkala. I'm the managing director of Vala Technologies, which is a Tampere-based deep tech startup founded early last year. Our team has been working together even longer, since like late 2015, early 2016. And we are basically working on a protocol level innovations to make software development easier, more accessible and simpler. We are trying to reduce complexity from software development.
I know that here in Tribe you have some kind of programming school. Can you...
Yeah, so I actually do a few different types of programming training. First of all, I do mainly with immigrants and asylum seekers from Tampere Aikuiskoulutuskeskus daily session, 2 hours, where I teach people who don't have any programming background how to build web applications. I've been running this for a bit more than half a year now. So I have a few groups that have sort of graduated, if you can call it that. It takes 6 weeks each group is 6 weeks, and the newest one started on Monday actually. So that's like half of part validation to our platform. I'm testing and I'm studying what are the barriers for people from that prevent them from learning software development. At the same time, it's also a bit like a sort of voluntary work that I do a couple hours a day. Yeah, then there are other workshops. For example, today with the Red Brick Accelerator, we had one.
What was your today's session about?
Well, I tried to give like the condensed version of the 6-week program that I have for these non-programmers. So there's this kind of a myth that you are either born to be a programmer or you're not. People think that you can learn almost everything except programming, which you have to be kind of gifted with. And I'm trying to prove that wrong. I think that 50 years old is exactly as good time to start learning how to program than 5 years old is. So what we tried to do in this today's session, which was only 2 hours, was to give these participants the feeling that they actually can create something in a relatively short period of time. So we jumped over a lot of theoretical stuff and basic like theory and so on, and we just did a chat application basically. So everyone managed to program a chat
How can the
application.
startups will be able to use what they learned from your today's session?
There's a lot of benefits in learning how to write even smaller programs outside the fact that you can then build small programs. One, like there's this saying that every company is a tech company, even no matter what you are doing, and the Red Brick startups are doing food stuff and delivery stuff and all sort of stuff. One thing that you can do is you can collaborate and work much better with software developers when you actually have a basic sense of what is it that they are doing. Again, going back to the myth of this godlike software developer working in a black box that then sometimes ejects some sort of functioning things, and then you have no idea what they did. and when they try to explain it to you, you're like,